Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in to our latest Bank Holiday Monday historic video. So here we go again. It's Bank Holiday Monday and it's time to bring you another historic weather video from GavsWeatherVids. This is going to be a direct follow-on from the last Bank Holiday historic weather video where we looked at the first half of 1970. This is part 2. For 1970, we're going to pick the storyline up exactly where we left off with the last video, at the beginning of the summer of 1970. We're going to go through the rest of the year. And I'll get on with that for you very shortly, just to say thank you so much everybody for tuning in on your Bank Holiday Monday. It's amazing. I'm always amazed that people want to spend this time, with me and with GavsWeatherVids on their Bank Holiday Mondays. And just thank you so much to each and every one of you. I hope you're having a lovely, lovely day on this late spring, or on this spring Bank Holiday Monday. Thank you so much to all of you. I want to say thank you so much to Trevor Harley and also to WeatherCentral.de. As I always say, these historic weather videos, I'm like the smallest cog in the wheel, if you like. I'm just sort of a narrator of the storyline, but it really is, the charts from WeatherCentral.de along with the information from Trevor Harley that makes these historic videos so special. Bringing them together, is always a delight to me to be able to do these. We don't do all that many of them through the year. We only do them like on Bank Holiday Mondays and on Christmas Day and whatnot. So there's only a few of these every year. Always a special day when we do them. For example, there won't be another historic video until August Bank Holiday Monday. So they're very uncommon, events, really, these videos. But I love doing them, and I just hope that you will love watching them as much as I love doing them. Thank you so much to Trevor Harley and to WeatherCentral.de for the charts and also for the information. Right, with that said, I think we will get on with 1970 part 2. Please like, share and subscribe and let us know in the comments what you think. Right, so we're going to begin, as I said, we're picking it up exactly where we left off with part 1. We're beginning on the first day of June 1970. So June 1970 is a very warm month. It's actually the second warmest June of the 20th century. Only June 1976 is warmer than this month. It has a central temperature of 16.4 degrees, and high pressure is dominating the weather throughout most of the month. So as you can see here, for example, we have this large ridge of high pressure here on the first day of June 1970 already. Nice extension from the Azores High, bring plenty of dry and warm weather. The upper air temperatures not excessively warm at this point, but clearly the warmth is gathering down to the south and will be enveloping into this area of high pressure. So look on the 2nd of June 1970, under a large area of high pressure, bringing loads of dry, fine and warm weather. And the high pressure begins to move up towards Scandinavia on the 3rd, and we start to pull in much hotter air from the east. So this is the 4th of June 1970, where we've got high pressure dominating over Scandinavia, low pressure down towards Spain, combining to bring up a very warm east to southeasterly wind. We keep these dry, hot, or very warm easterlies going through the rest of the first week of June 1970 as well. Again, low pressure is down towards Spain, high pressure is up over Scandinavia. Winds are in from the east, but the origins of the air came from south of these, so this is a proper warm sort of easterly push. We get to the end of the first week of June 1970, again with a high pressure to the northeast, a low pressure getting a little bit closer to the south, possibly threatening some thunderstorms. It is actually a very thundery month, June 1970. So I'll just read you what Trevor Harley says. So the month has 32 degrees, 90 Fahrenheit, recorded on the 10th. We'll get to that in a moment. Thunderstorms mid-month gave some exceptional rainfall. 2 of the top 10 heaviest rainfall rates of the century occurred during this month. The storms appeared over eastern Scotland on the 6th, where as a small trough of low pressure moved west. 93 millimetres of rain fell in 117 minutes at Lossiemouth, less than 2 hours. 93 millimetres, wow. There was 111 millimetres of rain in 90 minutes in Gloucester, equivalent of 74 millimeters an hour. Incredible. So you can see why this is so thundery, but also so warm, with low pressure ourselves and bringing in those easterly winds. Now, this is a hot day on the 10th, so you can see the heat is pushing northwards from the south, but there is a thundery low there across northern parts of France. Let's look at the upper air temperatures. Yeah, we've got the plus 10 Celsius iceberg through the country. Remember, this is lifting temperatures to 90 Fahrenheit here on the 10th, 32 degrees Celsius, but also volatile with this area of low pressure bringing plenty of thunderstorms. The night of the 10th to the 11th was very warm. Minimum temperatures of 19 degrees in Manchester, which at that point was a record as well, but also with violent thunderstorms breaking out, all looking very slack here on the 11th. We have violent thunderstorms breaking out. Right, so violent thunderstorms in the Manchester area on the 11th, with golf ball sized hailstones, flooding in the northwest from Derby to Bury, a storm in London here on this day causes flooding at Heathrow, closing the runways. Wow. An exceptional event gave 67 millimeters of rain in 25 minutes at Pershore in Worcester, equivalent of 161 millimeters per hour. But at the same time, on the 11th, 31 degrees, 88 Fahrenheit is recorded in Bar, southwest Scotland. So heat and humidity combining to produce these torrential thunderstorms within this sort of slack and very anticyclonic type air mass. But, you know, pressure low enough to allow the heat and humidity to trigger these violent thunderstorms. The pattern basically continues up to the middle of June of 1970. So here we go, with high pressure again out to our northwest. So it's still generally pulling in these very warm to potentially quite hot sort of easterly winds from off the continent, a real melting pot of an atmosphere. I think overall the north is probably drier with this. Regularly high pressure is ridging to the north, with pressure tend to be slacker and weaker and lower the further south you go. So I think generally with this, it's going to be more southern areas again, the further north, but of course that's not entirely the case. We know there is storms in the north as well. Into the second half of the month, the basic pattern is continuing. Again, high pressure blocking to the north between Iceland and Norway, low pressure, thundery low over France, winds still coming in from that easterly direction, very, very warm, hot easterly winds still producing plenty of thunderstorms as well. Now, low pressure has a go at breaking down that area of high pressure from the Atlantic there on the 19th. That's going to try and break down the ridge, but doesn't really come to anything. And what happens is that the low stalls out to west of Ireland, and we just get another build of pressure from the Azores. So we get another push of high pressure from the Azores building over into the east and south of the country, and again that draws up those very warm and/or hot east winds. Now, this does look a little bit cooler. By the 22nd of June, we begin to start pushing low pressure a little bit more strongly in from the Atlantic. It's good again, it's running quite hot and humid air, so it's good again, acts as like a trigger for thunderstorms, but this time it looks like it's bringing in some cooler and fresher air from the Atlantic. You see how the upper air temperature is lowering a little bit out to west, but still generally very warm with those upper air temperatures further eastwards. A little bit more westerly there, around the 23rd, 24th, definitely looking rather cooler and fresher with the upper air temperature, particularly to more northern and western areas. But I don't think the heat is quite done with us yet, because by 25th, 26th, we're going to get another ridge building from the southwest. That one drifting over to the east again. We go back into those very warm to hot southerly southeast winds. Up comes those warm upper air temperatures again on the 26th of June, and move through to the 27th, and then this next trough moves in to that heat and humidity. So again, you can imagine this is like a melting pot of an atmosphere, the trough moving in, acting as the trigger within the heat and humidity to start producing yet more thunderstorms. And so Trevor Harley writes, there were more thunderstorms on the 27th affecting the Fens and East Anglia, causing flooding, particularly around Kings Lynn and March, where large hailstones devastated 4,000 acres of crops. There was a tornado at March. Also on the 27th, 58 15.8 millimeters of rain fell in 12 minutes at Wisbech. This is the highest rainfall rate of the 20th century, although altogether 100 millimeters fell in 140 minutes. So I'm so sorry, but I'm struggling to get all of these facts and numbers out. It's very difficult when we're going through, these many numbers. Let's do that again. We had altogether 100 millimeters fell in 140 minutes, just over 2 hours. It's the equivalent of 254 millimeters. Are you following this, everybody? Per hour. Only the precedent downpour of August 1893 was more ferocious, and that reading is questionable. There were 4 deaths by lightning, unfortunately, during this month. On the other hand, there was a drought in the northwest. June was warmer than July this year, which we will come to in a moment. The last time that's happened, although it had happened in the 1960s. So what a remarkable month June 1970 was. I'm so sorry I didn't do that very well, everyone. But you get the idea that it's incredibly hot, incredibly humid month for June. But look at this, it ends on a much cooler and fresher note with low pressure away to our northwest, bringing in these much cooler and fresher westerly winds. Looking at the upper air temperatures, you can see they're still relatively warm in the southwest, actually. The warmth is trying to hang on there, but for northern and east, there's definitely fresher conditions are emerging. So let's move on into July, and we begin July 1970 in total contrast to June, wet and windy. Wouldn't you believe? Wouldn't you just believe it? Low pressure to the north of Scotland, bringing in much cooler and fresher west to northwesterly winds. The CET for July 1970 is 15.2. So it's a cooler than average month overall, and of course significantly by more than a degree cooler than the June before it, which is very unusual because, of course, this is a warming time of year, so you would expect July to be significantly warmer than June, but it doesn't always pan out like that. So here we go. Then we begin July 1970 on a cool, wet and windy note with winds in from the west or northwest, although the heat hasn't quite done with us yet. See how the Azores high is still relatively close, and this is going to send up a ridge into the south of the country as we go through the first week. Then that ridge drifts eastwards to Germany and starts to pull hot air back up from the south. So we're plus 15 Celsius ice firm getting close to southern parts of the country there on the 6th of July. And we go through to the 7th, and we bring that plus 15 Celsius ice firm into the southeast of the country. High pressure way to our east, low pressure to west, winds pushing up from the south. So Trevor Harley writes, quite a cool month overall, although an early heat wave saw the hottest day of the year, 32.2 degrees Celsius, at Aldenham Hearts on the 7th, and also at Stratford upon Avon. So this is the hottest day of the of July and also of the summer of 1970. Very quickly swept to Avon by the 8th as this low pressure comes in off the Atlantic Ocean, bringing much cooler and fresher weather with it. Trevor Harley writes, it was a dull month, largely unsettled, with frequent northwesterly winds. It was also quite a wet month at Tyree with 136 millimetres of rain, but only 28 millimetres of rain fell at Walton on Naze. So regular low pressure off the Atlantic brings spells of wind and rain to the northwest, keeping that Azores high going to our southwest for more southern areas. Not now in a position to bring anything particularly warm to us. The wind is sort of west-northwesterly off the Atlantic, so all looking rather flat. But keeping some southern areas a little bit dry. That's the 14th of July, but when we bring in a northerly, we pull the heights out to west far enough to allow a northerly to push down across the country. That's only temporary, and then the high pressure is back in off the Atlantic. But it's just a suggestion. It's quite a cool, cloudy, sort of mixed type month, not particularly inspiring. Another low pressure pushing through there on the 19th, again turning wind back round into the north. Hints of northern blocking here on the 20th with low pressure towards Greenland, and again down come those northerly winds. Heading a little bit further on, we keep it unsettled, more low pressure meandering in off the Atlantic, all looking rather slack and flabby, but plenty of low pressure there, bringing further showers, if not some longer spells of rain. All the time, the winds remain quite cool and from a westerly or northwesterly direction. So we come to the end of July 1970, just start to build up a little bit more of a ridge of high pressure from the southwest, perhaps turning things a little bit drier and warmer. The upper air temperatures beginning to lift up, so definitely looking a bit warmer for the last day of the month. And then that takes us through to August 1970, which has a central temperature of 16.0. So August is also very, very unusual. This August is also cooler than June in this summer. Absolutely remarkable how hot that June was. Therefore, although at 16 degrees, August is closer to long-term averages and is warmer than July. So we begin with this area of high pressure again ridging through the country up to the northeast, bringing plenty of dry weather. Actually really quite warm here as getting to the 2nd of August 1970. Wind is back in from the east again, courtesy of that Scandinavian high. So I imagine this is going to get temperatures at least into the mid, if not the upper 20 Celsius. The real heat, of course, is over France and down into Spain and Portugal, so not quite tapping into that, but nevertheless still looking pretty warm here as we begin August 1970. Low pressure heat, thundery low developing over France, so threatening some thunderstorms. Trevor Harley writes there were some notable downpours early in the month, so we have 43 millimeters in 30 minutes, I think this is, in a thunderstorm in central London on the 7th of August, 65 millimeters in 80 minutes in Harwell in Oxham. So hot and thundery, it's kind of like going back to the June pattern, like hot and thundery, or very warm anyway, and thundery sort of opening week to August 1970, all very slack with these thundery lows within quite hot and humid air. Again, you see we've got the plus 10 Celsius isotope up to Scotland, so this is quite a warm, maybe even relatively hot and humid air mass, but it is triggering thunderstorms with these little areas of low pressure. Thunderstorms in hot and humid air masses through the first week of August 1970. All beginning to freshen up again to the second week of August 1970. That high pressure begins to pull away from us again to our west. We start to introduce these cooler winds from off the Atlantic. So now if you look at the upper air temperature, you see they're looking so much cooler, so much pressure, especially so for more northern areas, maybe a little hint of autumn across the far north of Scotland. As we move further on into the middle part of the month, we see the Atlantic beginning to liven up. So this is the 12th. We have this area of low pressure whipping itself up in the Atlantic, and that starts to then open the door. That first low opens the door to much deeper areas of low pressure on a more southerly track, and so these areas of low pressure start to bring much wetter and windier weather. Trevor Harley writes, deep depressions swept the British Isles in the third week of August 1970. 120 millimeters of rain falling in Belfast on the 15th to the 16th led to extensive flooding. 150 millimetres in 3 days at Moray Firth. Severe gales in the southwest. A campsite was wrecked near Pembroke. 91 millimetres of rain falling in Birmingham on the 19th, so turning properly wet and windy. Look at this area of low pressure winding itself up through the middle part of August 1970. Gale force winds, I say, wrapped around that area of low pressure with lots of wet and windy weather coming through as well. Charlie writes, thunderstorms added to the mayhem. Much traffic disruption in the southwest. The worst flooding was over northeast Scotland. 150 millimetres of rain in 3 days. Heavy agricultural losses. The Aberdeen-Inverness rail link was underwater, and Elgin and Forest was the worst affected towns. So low pressure in control for the second half of August 1970. Again, got another low there right over top of the coast. Look at the upper air temperatures, and they're looking really quite cool with that area of low pressure too. So, I mean, what a strange summer this is. So hot, but very thundery in June. cooler, wetter, and more unsettled for July. Hot start with thunder to August, then into like very autumnal, really wet weather through the middle of August, really cool as well. And now we're coming to the end of August 1970. We're back under high pressure. This isn't bringing in particularly hot air. Upper air temperatures aren't excessively warm, but it is bringing much drier weather, and probably you would have thought much warmer weather as we're closing out August 1970, and also the summer of 1970. Get to the very end of month's end, starts to bring the next low in from off the Atlantic, more wet and windy weather back in to end this really, really bizarre summer of 1970. Right, at that point, I think I have a little break, so I hope you enjoyed the video so far. When we return, we're going to be discussing the autumn and then on into the winter 1970, 1971. You get yourself a cup of tea, stretch your legs, and I shall see you back here in around 2 seconds. See you soon. Okay, we're back, and we're ready to resume. Turn the camera on. There we go, we're ready to resume our historic video for this Bank Holiday Monday. We're looking at 1970, this is 1970 part 2. We did part 1 in the early May, Bank Holiday Mondays, and we're doing part 2 for this spring Bank Holiday Monday. So before the break, we was discussing the summer of 1970. Very, very strange and bizarre summer with a really hot and thundery June, and then a much cooler and much more unsettled and mixed summer thereafter. We're now moving on into the autumn of 1970 and also winter 1970, 1971. So let's do this then. We're going to pick the storyline up exactly where we left off. We're on the first day of September of 1970. We're looking unsettled here with low pressure out to our west. So September 1970 has a central temperature of 14.4. Therefore, it is a relatively warm month. It's also quite a dry month as well. Maybe a bit surprisingly so, given the deepness of this low pressure just to our west. Let's see what happens. So we begin September 1970 on a wet and windy note. Getting away from that, this low pressure bringing plenty of wind and rain in from off the Atlantic. That low clears away and we get a bit of a ridge from the southwest. So this brings dry weather into southern west areas, but a bit on the cool and showery side up in the north. Then we get this next area of low pressure heading in from off the Atlantic on the 7th of September. That looks like it's bringing in another bout of wet weather, and we're into proper wind, rain, autumnal type gales here on the 8th of September 1970. Let's see what Trevor Hardy has to say about this then. So, as I say, a dry month overall, but there was an unsettled first half. On the 9th, in Anglesey, the average wind speed for an hour was 60 miles per hour. Very, very windy. There was a cool period between the 10th and the 15th. So, obviously, the first half of September 1970 is properly autumnal and wet and windy with this deep area of low pressure. Central pressure of this is 975 millibars, I think, to western Scotland. So properly wet and windy here as we go from the first week into the second week of September 1970. And also pretty cool as well. We're lining the jet stream up, black line memories of jet, lining jet stream up northwest, southeast. So cool, wet, windy and unsettled up to the middle part of September 1970. It seems strange that this could be regarded as a particularly dry month. There must be a push of high pressure soon. Maybe this is it. This is 16th of September 1970, where high pressure then is beginning to reach from France into the southern parts of England. Low pressure trying to get pushed out to the northwest. Is this high pressure making its move? Let's have a look. Yes, it is. This is the 19th of September 1970, where we now have high pressure dominating the weather. Let's see what Trevor Hardy has to say. So there was a very warm end to the month with 28 degrees. Wow, very hot. Recorded in central London on the 20th. And 26 degrees recorded in places on the 25th and the 26th. 27 degrees was recorded in Nottingham and Gloucester, 81 Fahrenheit, on the 28th. Many places had no rain between the 16th to 29th, and Skegness, for example, recorded only 14 millimetres of rain during the whole month. What a strange month, because again, September's like a cooling time of year, so you tend to expect September to be cooler in the second half to the first half, but this really bizarre sort of summer, and now in into autumn is doing it the other way round still, with like September being cooler, wetter in the first half of the month, more autumnal first half, and then back to summer in the second half. This is how the upper air temperatures look on this day, 20th of September 1970, which, as I said, recorded 26 degrees, 80 Fahrenheit across some parts of the country. A proper late summer heat wave. High pressure really dominating the weather there on the 21st, 22nd, 23rd, also dominated by high pressure. The high pressure fest carries on into the final week of the month. Low pressure deepening in the Atlantic, trying to get in, but still with high pressure sitting over to the east of the country, fending off for now those areas of low pressure and keeping things dry and very warm. This is 28th of September 1970, where I think we're recording 27 degrees in Nottingham and Gloucester too on these southerly winds. Again, here's those upper air temperatures. They're looking really warm as well. So a proper late summer sort of heat wave. All gone by the 30th. This is the last day of September 1970, where we're pulling the high pressure away to the southwest, pulling in much cooler, fresher air from the northwest. Looking at the upper air temperatures lowering significantly, isobars tightening as well. So the wind's getting up, it's turning cooler, and we're bringing autumn into the north. Let's see what happens then as we move on into October. So October 1970 has a central temperature of just 10.7. It's about average, really. And Trevor Hardy writes another average October after the excitement of the previous one. Of course, October 1969 was very warm. It was dry in the south with only 9 millimetres of rain at Margate and 13 millimetres in September in Southampton, but wetter in the northwest. So let's have a look at this then. We begin on quite a cool and showery note during the beginning of October 1970, with winds in from west to northwest. Much more autumnal sort of flavour. You can clearly see that from the deepness of the low pressure to the northwest of Scotland. So this is proper autumn now, which explains why it does have like an autumnal CET, an average CET, 10 point, what was it? It was 10.7. So bang on average, or very close to average, autumnal and rather cool type October. We go through into the second week. We've got this ridge building through the southern part of the country, bringing plenty of dry weather, a little bit more wetter and windier up in the north. When we get into further on, this is 11th of October, we have high pressure to our east, low pressure to our west. We're drawing up these southerly winds. So now we're into warmer weather again. Upper air temperatures show have got some warmth pushing up from the south. So turning drier and warmer once more with this area of high pressure centered over to east country. Of course, we don't know whether there was fog going on with this. It's quite a long time ago. So this kind of scenario, although it's after the Clean Air Act, this kind of scenario might have produced quite a lot of fog. Middle of October 1970, again, has high pressure centered over to the east of the country. So still looking reasonably dry and quite warm, to be honest, after that autumnal start. But again, we have to factor in how long ago this was, that there could have been fog involved. Low pressure beginning to strengthen to the north of Scotland again, just beyond middle of the month. This is 18th of October, beginning to turn cooler, wetter and windier. And a bit of a northerly blast here. Wow, I haven't seen one of those on the charts for a while. Look at the upper air temperature, starting to bring the -5 Celsius ice into Scotland. So the first push of cold air of the season from the north here on the 19th and the 20th of October. -5 Celsius ice plunging down across the country. That's probably bringing wintry showers into the north. So the first northerly blast around the 20th of October doesn't last for long. We begin to move the high pressure southwards and re-establish a milder west or southwesterly. We're coming into the final week of October 1970 and looking rather mixed, but still with high pressure to our south, still dragging up quite warm air from the southwest. So a real variable month here, really variable during October 1970. We're at the last day of the month, Halloween, where we actually recorded, or just the day before, actually, this day, 30th of October, the eve of Halloween, if you like, where we actually record 18 degrees on this long fetch southwesterly. Look how far from the southwest the air is originating from. What a variable October that was. I suppose it's like back to normal, really, though. After all of the bizarre weather through like the spring, which was very cold, and the summer, which was really, really odd, into September, which was rather strange. Well, this is a much more typical type month, much more typical of the month of October. Very variable, with alternating air masses and whatnot. And then that takes into November 1970, where we have a central temperature of 7.8, so quite mild, wet and stormy in the north. A gust of 115 miles per hour was recorded at Fair Isle on the 14th. Get down in a moment. We're beginning November 1970 on rather a wet and windy note across the country, and we keep these areas of low pressure piling in from the Atlantic as we go into the second week of the month as well. So it does look like it's a much more unsettled Atlantic-driven, zonal, westerly, stormy type month. Beginning to get a little bit cold as well. This is the 12th. We're starting to deeper jet stream southwards too. So these areas of low pressure not only bringing heavy rain, possibly start to bring some snow into the northern part of the country as well. This day, 14th of November 1970, is where we get that 115 mile per hour gust of wind. So let's go back there to the 13th. Doesn't look overly stormy, that actually, does it? So I'm not sure whether it's on an active cold front or something. Possibly there's an active cold front probably plunging southwards. Upper air temperature show digging some cold air from the north. To be honest, that does not look overly stormy, but that's what Trevor Harley says, and who am I to disagree? 115 mile per hour gust at Fair Isle. Right, let's carry on then. So we're going to the second half month. Again, low pressure unleashed from off the Atlantic, bring loads of wet and windy weather. Trevor Harley writes, extremely wet overall, one of the wettest on record. I remember I have the exceptionally wet November in 2000. That was the wettest November since 1970, I think. I'm sure that's the case. Someone in the comments will correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure November 2000 was the wettest since 1970. Probably not quite as wet as November 1970. Here we are on the 18th. Very, very wet and windy. Low pressure moving in from the Atlantic. And we just keep these low pressures ploughing in, bringing further bouts of rain as we go into the last week of month. Also trying out some very mild air from the south. Look at these upper air temperatures, actually pushing up the plus 10 Celsius isotherm here on those southerly winds. So warm and wet as we move into the final week of November 1970, albeit with high pressure beginning to build out to our northwest. We end November 1970 still looking unsettled, still with low pressure over top of the country, bring further bouts of wind and rain. So we end November 1970 on a really unsettled note. And then that takes us through to December. Now, this is an interesting month too, because it does have a classic white Christmas. So let's see how this month, December 1970, begins. We begin on a relatively mild note with high pressure around the Azores and bring in this west to southwesterly wind. What's going to happen when we go through the first week of December 1970? We're looking mild and windy and wet with westerly winds and low pressure to our north, high pressure to our south. Trevor Harley writes, a pretty average month overall, but more exciting around Christmas time. More about that in a moment. It has a central temperature of 4.3, which is, you know, by modern standards, that's actually quite a coolish December. But for the era, you know, that's not overly cool, really. It's about average. A bit of a northwesterly push here on the 6th of December, 1970, turning things a bit cooler. But then the high pressure back in over top of the country, so that brings lots of dry and fine weather. If you look at the upper air temperatures, they're relatively mild and about high pressure. Of course, it's a winter high. It's a long time ago, so I suspect this is probably fogging up quite a lot. We're probably getting quite a lot of fog under that area of high pressure, and probably inversion is taking place as well. So it's probably frosty and foggy. It could be anticyclonic gloom, but I have a feeling you know, back in this era, we're probably fogging this up and having an inversion. We're into the second week of December 1970. The high pressure centered over into the east coast, again bringing in those southerly, southeasterly winds. The high pressure then begins to drift to the east as we get through to the 11th. Low pressure starting to come in from off the Atlantic. Still quite a bit of high pressure influence here, though. So middle of December, mainly dry, probably quite cold under this ridge, with the chance of more frost and fog. And then we're back into milder west-southwesters again by 16th. No sign whatsoever of the white Christmas here as we get into the 18th of December. We're just a week away from Christmas Day now. Where is this white Christmas going to come from? How's it going to happen? Let's see what happens. So 19th of December 1970, still looking relatively mild. High pressure to our south. There's a cold front coming into the northwest, bringing some rain. Behind that, some higher pressure starting to build in from the Atlantic. This is where it all begins. It's the 20th of December 1970 as this high pressure begins to push northwards up towards Greenland. It starts to turn the wind into the north to northwest. Not desperately cold at this point, but certainly a lot cooler with overnight frost again coming in on these northern winds, and maybe even some wintry showers in eastern parts of the country. 22nd, 23rd of December, we take the high pressure further northwards. We're now centering it up towards Iceland, and we're beginning to pull in more of an easterly wind. Look at the upper air temperatures. Not overly cold for us. They are pretty cheap, not overly cold, but look how cold it is across Europe, Scandinavia, and down into Germany and the Low Countries, under the -10 Celsius ice firm on the eve of Christmas Eve. How exciting will that be? Let's go through the Christmas Eve itself. So then we have high pressure centre between Scotland and Iceland. Winds are in from the east now. Those east winds are starting to drag in those cold upper air temperatures. In fact, they're bitterly cold upper air temperatures beginning to move in from the east. And on those easterly winds, no doubt snow showers will be starting to arrive in the east and in the southeast too. Trevor Harley writes, the cold weather arrives on Christmas Eve. There was thunder on Christmas Eve. Wow, thunder snow. And a snowy Christmas. The last true, by proper definition, white Christmas for the southeast, with snow falling and laying. Of course, since then we had 1981 and 2010, which did have snow lying deep, crisp and even, but with very little actually falling. This has not only snow lying, but also has snow falling. So Christmas Eve 1970, again, those east winds bring snow showers into the east and the south. They carry on into Christmas Day. You can see from the kinks in the ice bars. I've got kinky ice bars here. You can see from the kinks in the ice bars. But we are probably bringing in like troughs from the east that would sort of pep up the showers. That's where the risk of thunder snow is coming from. Let's look at the upper air temperatures. We've got -10 Celsius ice firm here in here across the southeast. So temperatures will be staying around freezing all day, and there would be these snow showers and bands of snow pushing in. Probably quieter in the north, close to the high pressure there. I doubt there's all that much snow for Scotland, Northern Ireland or Western Britain. It really is more of a southern and eastern base white Christmas, I think, this one. Trevor Harley writes, I remember it snowing a lot in Southampton on Christmas Day, but I don't think it was that bad really, after we still managed to drive to our grands and back. Overall, the month was very dry. So, yeah, much colder for Christmas. Look at this, it's Boxing Day. Again, there's a little trough running in across the south. That must have brought more general snow to southern parts of the country. Look at -10 Celsius ice firm there, enveloping all parts of England west. It's a proper cold easterly, actually. Although Trevor Harley writes that it probably wasn't that bad. This does look like a really cold easterly, I have to say. And I reckon Boxing Day was probably even snowier than Christmas Day for more southern areas, courtesy of this little trough of low pressure. So I reckon that would have produced maybe some more general snow across southern, southeast areas. And again, meanwhile, further north, a lot of dry weather on offer. The rest of Christmas week actually keeps it cold. The high pressure goes even further north to Iceland and Greenland as we get to 28th. Winds remain in from an easterly direction, so it remains cold. We begin to lose the -10 Celsius ice firm. Nevertheless, it remains cold with those east winds bringing in yet more snow from the east, and we keep it cold up to the new year as well. Again, plenty of high pressure way to our northwest, winds in from an east to northeast direction here for the for New Year's Eve. -10 as Iceland begin to re-establish, and this time start to dig into the north. So as we move up towards New Year, as we move up towards Hogmanay, I suppose there's more snow for northern areas now, but probably all areas getting snow showers on those northeast winds. A cold New Year, another one, there's lots of them during the 1960s and into the 1970s. Another cold New Year, that's New Year's Eve again, looks pretty bitter, I think, across most parts of the country. Of course, cold has now been established for around a week. It started on Christmas Eve, so I would have thought by this point we're beginning to generate our own sort of low-level cold pool, but it's probably keeping the temperature below freezing day and night as well. We begin 1971 also on a cold note, but notice we're starting to lose the blocking. We're starting to run out of blocking. The ridge is beginning to slip down over the top of the country. Lots of cold air just to the north. That wants to push southwards, keep the cold air going. But there's no blocking to help that cold air surge southwards. Look how bitter the air is to our north. So if we could get a northerly, we would really be in for severe weather. But there's no blocking to help drive that southwards. The ridge has sort of slipped down into Western Europe. Low pressure is beginning to wind itself up in the Atlantic. And although we have a very cold start to January 1971 with sub-zero temperatures day and night, it isn't long at all before low pressure starts to tap from the Atlantic. We lose the blocking, and in comes the low pressure from the Atlantic. This probably brings some snow initially as this milder air bumps into the cold air. So I imagine there will probably be a snow event initially, but the mild air is winning the battle. So by the 6th of January 1971, the southwesterlies are back. Cheddar Harley writes, a mild and unsettled month. The cold spell over Christmas 1970 ended on the 6th this day when it turned mild. And we draw up these long fetch southwest winds. Look at the upper air temperature, seeing that +5 Celsius iceberg surging northwards. And then we go off and running into a much milder spell of weather. CET for January 1971 is 4.5, so not that different from December, but there's very little in the way of cold weather, and actually exceptionally mild weather at times. This is the 9th of January 1971, where we're in the midst of an exceptional warm spell. Cheddar Harley writes, an exceptional warm spell between the 8th and the 11th. Aber in North Wales once again reached 18.3 degrees on the 10th. So this day sees 18 degrees in North Wales. Absolutely incredible. Look how warm the upper air temperatures are. How cold were they around Christmas and New Year? That's all gone. Distant memory. We're now into proper spring type warmth, even early summer type warmth, I suppose. Temperatures over 15 degrees widespread across many parts of the country. 16.7 degrees, Scotland's highest ever January temperature. Absolutely remarkable contrast. So we keep low pressure in off the Atlantic. Try to raise the heights a little bit there as we go to the middle part of the month, but not able to bring any cold weather to us. It's always low pressure driving in off the Atlantic, turning rather stormy into the second half of January 1971. Cold zone attitude, probably bringing some snow to high ground in the north, but generally rain down in the south, and just classic sort of mild, wet and windy type weather. There's actually tornadoes on the 25th. Let's look at that. This area is low pressure here triggers tornadoes across parts of the country on the 25th January 1971. And then that takes us on into, we do get a little bit of a northerly there, just very briefly on the last day of January 1971, but not for long. High pressure ridges in from the west, cuts that off of February. And then that takes into February 1971, has a CT of 4.5, slightly milder than average. So again, this one has a lot of dry weather. We're back under high pressure. This is a warm ridge, no blocking. That keeps us mainly dry and relatively spring-like. Again, probably with frost and fog night and morning, but not cold with winds from the north or from the east. A little bit more stormier there. Now, the middle of February 1971. So So, you know, it's proper classic sort of mild winter stuff, this, once we get beyond Christmas to New Year, really, with low pressure and high pressure alternating, but always in a position to keep the winds relatively mild from the south or from the southwest. We're coming to the end of February 1971. We're trying to raise the heights to our north. There's a deep cold pool over Scandinavia, so it's bitterly cold over Scandinavia. Are we going to get the wind into the east and pull some cold air in one last time? Let's see what happens. We're very, very close to it here on the 27th of February 1971. Proper Scandi and a deep cold pool sitting to our east. Look how close the -10 Celsius ice is to us, threatening a very cold end and snowy end to February 1971, but somehow or other, quite happen, although we do just about get the -10 into East Anglia there on the last day of February 1971. So definitely ending the winter and February on a colder note, possibly with some snow showers in this southeastern corner. But look at this, low pressure comes in off the Atlantic in the first day of March, and so we start to see those coldest temperatures kept at bay. I mean, it is still chilly into early March, but the really severe cold pool that is engulfing many parts of Europe kept at bay over the other side of the North Sea. Very, very typical of like modern winters, I suppose. That's the third. Beginning to get that cold air in from the east a little bit more on the 3rd of March 1971. That's the 4th of March. Again, we have brought that cold air into the southeast, actually. A little bit surprisingly. Because pressure is high, I don't miss much snow with this. But from an upper air temperature perspective, it's actually the coldest of the winter into the early part of the spring. So we go further on, and again it's in this southeast corner that we have these very cold upper air temperatures. Otherwise, away to the north and the west, there is you know, a lot of milder air under that area of high pressure. And then we go towards the end of the first week of March 1971, and we're under the high pressure. We begin to lose those cold upper air temperatures, but just a while actually at the beginning of March 1971, we do bring in some properly cold air from the east, but then that quickly gets pushed away, and then we're into milder, wetter and windier weather once again through the rest of March 1971. Let's run through to the last day of the month, and then I think we're going to wrap things up. Okay, so we're at the end of March 1971. Now I think it's time to bring this historic video to a close. So let's turn the webcam back up. Hello, I'm back. So I hope you enjoyed this this two-part look at 1970. Really, really strange year. You know, it has that very cold spring that we discussed in part one. Has such a strange summer, so hot in June. Generally mixed. The rest of it, very odd sort of autumn, and then a white Christmas. What a bizarre year 1970 was. I hope you enjoyed this look at 1970 in two parts. Make sure you check out part one if you have not yet seen it. You know, this video is within the playlist, Historic WeatherVids playlist, on the YouTube channel homepage, as is part one as well. So you watch part one and part two on demand whenever you would like to do that via the playlist on the YouTube channel. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it's brought back some memories. If you do remember 1970, please let me know in the comments. Right, so you enjoy the rest of your bank holiday Monday. Everything's going to be back to normal tomorrow. GavsWeatherVids, I'm having a day off. I had a very busy few days, so I'm having the day off today. But everything will be back to normal tomorrow on the channel. We'll have all of the regular videos that you expect on a Tuesday. Enjoy the rest of your spring bank holiday Monday. And yeah, for this one, that's all for now. And thank you so much for spending this time with me on this bank holiday. Enjoy the rest of your day. That's all for now. And thanks for watching.